with. I like them because they're bigger and they're meatier. Once they're cooked through with all of the deliciousness, they have enough meat to these beans where they get big. They're obviously going to get a lot bigger than this once they get cooked, and they have the ability to absorb a lot of the flavors. So a little bean can only absorb so much. Bigger beans have the opportunity to catch it, and take advantage of it and make that bean even better. So I like the bigger beans. And so what I'll do is I'll take the beans and kind of these ingredients. What I've got here is the beans, some garlic, smoked bacon, ham hock, fresh thyme, and the fresh thyme and the bay leaf. And then what I do is also make a stock, a broth, out of the ham hock bones. So we'll make a big ham hock stock broth, and we'll pull all the meat off of the bones, because I like the big, the big hocks. I'm not talking about the little skinny ones that got no meat on. I'm talking about the showing up ham hock. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so we'll make a really rich broth, and we will cook that down from all the bones that are left over and save the meat. And then what we'll do is we'll combine the beans, a little bundle of fresh thyme, a little fresh bay leaf, pieces of bacon and ham hock, a little bit of garlic, and then the rich stock. And what we'll do with that is just simmer it real slow for a long time, till it's absolutely till those beans cook real slow until they're real tender. So you can I don't know if you can see this broth, but it's real rich, and it's got just that great ham hock flavor. And what I want to do is, so you're going to hear me talk a lot about flavor development, right? So if, as a cook, I start with ingredients, simple ingredients, and I put them together, one ingredient at a time, and build and build and build. And this is the beginning process. And so this will cook from the raw for, real slow for about 5 hours, really quiet. I'm talking about super quiet, like you're not boiling, barely simmering, to where it just picks up all of these great flavors: the thyme, the bay, the garlic, the smoked bacon, the ham hock, and what you end up with the finished product, which looks like this. You end up with these big. Now, see how much bigger these beans are now? Now that they've been cooked, they plumped up, right? And they're amazing. So they've absorbed all that great liquid. And if you're to eat them, there's nothing worse than overcooked dried bean, right? It turns to mush and gets starchy, and it's not good. This is like meaty. It's like biting into a piece of meat. It's perfectly cooked. It's got all those great developed flavors: the thyme, the bay leaf, the little smokiness of the bacon, that little ham hocky flavor, going on. And to me, a lot of times, this was just pork and beans. That's just what pork and beans were, just right here. Hard stop, pork and beans, that's what you're eating, right? So what I said is, well, look, let's kind of take it to the next level, just so y'all can see this. I want to kind of see how much bigger and plumper those are. See how they got right. See that? So it's amazing. Pretty much, yeah. And these are a little bit different. They're a white bean that's bigger than a lima bean, but it's a lot like a lima bean. A lot like that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is, all right, well, how do I as a chef take a very simple dish like that my grandmother just served for cornbread. And sometimes she'd have different vegetables at the table that would be part of that, but a lot of times that was it. It was pork and beans and cornbread. You know what I mean? And so I said, all right, well, as a chef, how do I want to kind of turn it into a restaurant dish that is complete? So you've got your meat, you got your starch, and being a big fan of collard greens, we're very lucky here in Alabama and really throughout the South is, we got a guy over here just south of Tuscaloosa, Moundville, who grows some really, really, really beautiful collard greens for us. And so what we do is we would take the bacon and render it. We'd add a little bit of onion, a little bit of fresh thyme. And I don't know what y'all think about collard greens, but here's what I think about collard greens. I don't add water to my collard greens. That's like a giant party foul. Because if you cook the collard greens covered real slow, they're going to lose all of that liquid that's inside these collard greens. They got plenty of just natural liquid inside their, the leaves. The biggest mistake I find, some of my cooks who don't want to listen to me all the time, I catch them wanting to add water. I'm like, why would you add water? Why didn't you do what I tell you? Cook it slow, barely get it moving, and let all that pot liquor happen, right? We all know what pot liquor is, right? It ain't pot liquor if there's a bunch of water in it. It's just watered down pot liquor that's not very good, right? And if you get it cooked down just exactly right, slow and low, till it just gets tender, and I prefer collard greens that are tender, but not turned to mush. I like my collard greens just right. I'm a little particular about, like most things I do, but the idea is to do that whole process to where you end up with collard greens that are just exactly right. You've got that, get that good pot liquor with them. And so the only other thing, she just got a little crunch to them, so it's just right. And then this is the final product. Since we don't have a whole lot of time, I just want to show you these. These are what we cooked earlier today, and you can't see the pot liquor at the bottom, but if you heard me bite on it, it's got just a tiniest little bit of tooth to it. Now, tooth is more of an Italian term. When they talking about eating risotto, which is meaning it's a little firmness to it, but it's still tender at the same time. So, oh yeah, by the way, this ham hock goes in here. You know what I'm saying? I didn't realize I didn't have ham hocks on my cart, but so that ham hock goes in with the raw beans. You got the chunks of bacon, you got the big ham hock itself, you got the stock made from ham hocks, the thyme, the bay leaf, little garlic, and then there's that. Now there's another component, which is the cornbread. Okay, and
Chris, let's look at a question.
Yes.
About the greens. How long do you cook them without the water?
So it takes about 20 minutes with a pot that has a lid. You gotta put it on super low. Just season a little salt and just cover it and make sure that the trick is make sure that it's got the kind of heat that's going to brown anything. You don't want the onions, the bacon, or the collard greens to get any kind of caramelization or color on them, right? You just want it to get warm so that the leaves release their liquid. And it happens in about 20 minutes. You stir it maybe every 7 or 8 minutes, right? And just let the stuff on the bottom get turned, and the stuff that's on the top get down to the bottom, and let it get warm enough to where it looses all that liquid. And then once it breaks, you can tell. And all the liquid starts coming out, and then you just keep the lid on it and let it slow cook for maybe another 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. And you never want it too fast, because again, you don't want to cook the liquid out, but you want to use that steam. You want the lid on it to hold the liquid in there, because if there's lids off of it, you're losing your liquid, right? So you want to contain the steam and the liquid with the lid, and the cooking happens more efficiently and it happens quicker, and it's just you end up with that really super delicious, perfectly cooked collard greens with that crazy good pot liquor, So yes, ma'am.
After you wash them, do you tear them before you cook?
Yes, great question. So I don't know if y'all heard the question, but I'm going to repeat it. So the question is, do you cut them or do you tear them, right? So what I like to do with my collard greens, is I like to tear them, okay? I just like to rip them like that. See how that comes off, just like that? Naked as a jaybird, no more stem, right? Just 1, 2, 3, just like that. And then at that point, you can cut them or you can tear them. It's really up to you. The important thing is this is no longer part of the deal. That's just the way I like to do it, you know? And it's a great question. I'm glad you thought to ask the question because I should have mentioned it.
Well, when you said stir it just, you know, the whole leaf would be awkward.
Yes, cumbersome. And so if I tear them, I'll just tear them like that. You know, just break them off into reasonable sized pieces and just throw them in the pot and they're going to cook down and it'll be fine. Now, I prefer to tear them, but sometimes I got to tone them, I got to cut them. So, you know, it's just a practical thing. Cutting them doesn't either way. 6 of one, half dozen of another as far as I'm concerned. So then we need to talk a little bit about cornbread, right? So when I was served the pork and beans at my grandmother's house, it was just the pork and beans and it was the cornbread. Like I said, occasionally there may be other vegetables at the table, but I wanted the collard greens to be with that because cornbread, collard greens, and pot liquor and that great pork liquid from the pork and beans, it does not get better than that. Period. Hard stop. So I wanted also to do the cornbread that I wanted to do, which was different than my grandmother's cornbread. So what's different about the cornbread I do versus my grandmother's? Well, a couple of things. One is there are 3 components that are in my cornbread that are a little different. My grandmother's cornbread was cornmeal and a little bit of baking powder, and mine is flour, corn flour, which is the small one here. It's very fine. It's like it's almost like flour. It is corn flour, so it's the meal that's ground down to the flour portion, and then of course the cornmeal itself with a little bit of baking powder, right? And so what I found about this is it's a couple things that in developing this recipe is that not only was it a little more delicate, it just was fantastic. Corn flour. Flour. So you can see how they're ground similarly. Yes, meal that's been turned into flour. Correct. This is the meal here. That's cornmeal. And the big one. This is the corn flour. You see the difference? Right?
Cornmeal, that's corn flour.
Right. And now I use it not in equal parts. I just use a little bit of flour, a little bit of corn flour, and what it does, it just makes it a little bit more delicate. I don't like coarse cornbread, but I also like, as a restaurateur and a chef, I wanted to have a little bit more of a refined, almost cake-like is not the wrong answer, but a more delicate cornbread. Not as coarse. So that's what I'm doing here. So a couple other things so we're going to combine the flour, cornmeal or corn flour, cornmeal and baking powder, a little salt and pepper. I don't know how often y'all have access to farm eggs or eggs that are just under a chicken, but look at that beautiful egg right there. It's like an Easter egg basket. I'll tell you, I go out of my way to find good eggs. I'll tell you right now. There's nothing better than an egg that has been up under a chicken yesterday and then I'm cooking with today. It's just the way to go. So we had an egg. Then I just want a little egg, and eggs not always added. So got salt and pepper in there. Add buttermilk. Now there's I don't know how y'all feel about cornbread, but I like using all kinds of cast iron pieces for cornbread. I like using a skillet. I like using the little the ones that are divided into like little pie shapes. But I really like the corn stick pans, the long ones. And I'll take the bacon fat and a little bit of fat from a little olive oil and the bacon fat and mix it together and get that pan really hot with the oil in it, and then put the cornbread in there, and man, it just gets nice and crispy in a good hot oven. Cooks real quick. You get the crispy bottom and the crispy top, and it's moist and delicious in the middle. Forget about it. So what we've got here is now the other ingredients that my grandmother never had in her cornbread. She'd probably roll over in the grave if she knew I was doing this. But so I got a little shaved corn, a little rendered bacon, and some scallions. And one of the things, I can't remember where I first had cornbread done like this, but I kind of fell in love with the cornbread that had the chunky stuff in it, right? And so you're eating the onion and cornbread is, you know, really good. So putting scallions in there is awesome. I wanted a little kind of, for lack of a better term, some crackling in my cornbread, right? And I always thought, well, let's kind of develop the corn flavor by putting some sweet corn in there, some fresh corn, right? And so we just add that, add that,
Okay, Chris,
fire away.
since I don't have a dictionary, what is rendered?
Okay, good question. So when I say rendered bacon, what I mean is bacon that's been cooked down until it's crispy.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And so this cornbread, I'm telling you, whew, son. Now I'm going to say, unfortunately, the cornbread that you're going to have today, the chef did not add all the goodies to it. So you're going to have a kind of my grandmother's cornbread, not my cornbread. So that's okay. That was just one of those things that happened.
We'll wait for that to get done.
I'm just telling you. That was so good. Eating it raw is good because you can taste the onion, you can taste the bacon, sweet corn's in there, the buttermilk, that fresh egg. Nothing like it. I'm telling you, it's the best cornbread ever.
Cook it at the restaurant.
Oh yeah, sure do. When we do this dish, we absolutely cook in the corn stick pans to order. We got corn stick pans in our right there, and they're hot. We got to keep them oiled. Then order comes in, we put the corn stick, put it in the pan. It's crispy, comes right out of that pan, goes right on top to finish it. It's good. It's really tough to beat, actually. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm very lucky to have great relationships with different artisans around the state. Some artists are metallurgists, some artists are woodworkers, some artists are potters, some artists do all kinds of things with different art forms, and I always like to collaborate with them. But these plates were interesting because Tina Payne started making pots for us 23 years ago, and she just wandered in the restaurant and said, "I'm a potter. I understand you work with pottery." Turns out the potter I was using kind of was having a tough time and ended up going out of business. So we developed a relationship, and all the plates that we serve our food on at the restaurant, we developed with her. She's got a company called Earthborn Pottery. It's in Leeds, Alabama, and you know where it's at? You been there? It's a great place, isn't it? It's cool. And so, anytime I can get together and collaborate, whether it's a metallurgist, whether it's a wood craftsman, a potter, anybody who makes their living with their hands and has a creative kind of thing, these are good examples of clean lines, simplicity, functionality that are unique to us. And one of the cool things we did, I don't know how familiar y'all all may or may not be with the show Iron Chef America. Is everybody familiar with it? Mm-hmm. So when we were invited to compete on Iron Chef America, it was 2012, and one of the things we were told about that competition was, okay, you have to, they said they were really cool, they were great people. They said, look, Chef, you have to bring to bear, your authenticity, your the things that make you unique in the world, and those may be, they may be your pig farmer, they may be your tomato person, they may be whatever, whoever, and we wanted to take it to the next level and have every single plate designed for the Iron Chef competition. And just kind of a little history on that. What they do is they give you 3 ingredients in advance, and they say you have to submit 3 menus, okay? And one of those 3 menus is going to be the menu you're going to compete on, okay? we were given octopus, Parmesan cheese, and sausage. So we wrote, and one of the pieces of advice a friend of mine gave me was, write your menus distinctly differently so that if you called your purveyors a week out and asked them, hey, did you ship tomatoes to the Food Network this week? And they go, how'd you know that? I said, oh, never mind, don't worry about it. It's a tell. It's like, okay, they picked the sausage, not the Parmesan, not the octopus. So so we kind of got that all worked out. And we found out in advance it was going to be battle sausage. They had asked me, who would you like to face? Because if you've ever seen the show, you're standing there like this, and you I pick Iron Chef, Bobby Flay. Well, he ain't in the room. He's there's not 5 other chefs standing around waiting for me to pick. That's predetermined. So when they asked me, it said, who would you want to face? I said, it really doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I just want to make sure that I'm going to travel all the way to Alabama to New York. I want the top winning chef on the squad. I don't know who's winning. I don't know who's best, who's worst. Just give me the top dude or girl. Don't matter. And I'm like, okay. Big talker. And so what we did was we got there. We designed our own plates for each menu. So we brought the sausage plates. We brought a little moonshine from Elmore County. We put some white peaches in there. We got my grandmother's aperitif glasses. Since it's sausage, you really can't do a dessert course. So what we did was, with the last course, we served a little moonshine and some white peach. It's kind of like a digestive, like you would do with grappa in Italy. And it was really cool. And we kind of brought the whole Alabama experience, and we ended up stomping poor Bobby Flay into a mud hole, and he didn't really know what happened to him when he left out. So it was a neat experience. So all right, the last component was not a part of my grandmother's recipe was chow chow. Now all y'all are familiar with chow chow, right?
Yes.
All right. So what's the value and the purpose and the hope of chow chow? What do you think it is?
To eat with the veggies.
Right. And eat with your veggies, and it also could be with your meat.
Yeah.
Because what we'll do is we'll take the peppers, a little bit of orange, a little bit of sugar, a little salt and pepper. What's not here is I've got a little white wine vinegar and a little water, and then we'll cook them all down together till they turn into chow chow. Now you all recognize that. Everybody in here has seen chow chow before.
Yeah.
Now chow chow comes in a million different things. You could have, there's more chow chow recipes out there than Carter's got liver pills. You know what I'm saying? So what we wanted to do is provide something that gives these very rich and in-depth flavors a little oomph, a little brightness, right? You'll hear me talk a lot and trying to teach my young cooks too about how to take something that's rich like this and add acid to it. That could be lemon juice, that could be vinegar, that could be wine, any number of things to brighten the flavors. What it does is it allows all of the rich flavors, that acidity, that brightness, to recognize the depth of flavors without it being heavy on your palate. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like if you went and took a big pat of butter and put it in your mouth and let it melt and swallowed it and go, oh, that's kind of heavy and no flavor. Well, you put a little drop of lemon in there, a little vinegar, it's going to brighten that whole thing up. Thank you very much. You're the best. And so that being said, I'm always trying to teach these young cooks, you got to learn how to balance fat and acid. All right, so one of the things that also is different about this particular dish is, in the restaurant, we also top the pork and beans with a little piece of either seared, it could be the loin, it could be the tenderloin, it could be whatever. So all I did was take a little tenderloin of pork, season it with some salt and pepper, a little bit of fresh thyme, roast it all the way around, and then this will be kind of the like you go to a good restaurant, you pay the kind of money you're going to pay me to cook for you. You better have something more than some pork and beans on the plate. You know what I'm saying? So we take a nice some nice tenderloin, put it on there, really kind of finish out the dish. The only other thing that I would say is going to be part of the finishing of this dish that my grandmother would never do, is just put a little bit of fresh herbs in there. So we got a little bit of fresh parsley, fresh chives, a little bit of fresh thyme, and chopped it up, and just finished the pork and beans. Now, I want y'all to take a look at this. Also want you to smell it. Smell that? Get the heck out of here. You know what I'm saying? See all that rich flavor? Smell all that? I'll tell you something. There's few things in life I enjoy more than really just, taking time to cook properly. You know what I mean? Take time to cook properly. To pull flavors together and to pull all of the, one ingredient at a time, just develop the flavors, right? I mean, to me, that's a triumph of the hope of what I do, is to be able to, pull all that together.
Yeah.
Nice, huh?
Bring a little dish.
And, probably as important as anything, I would want my grandmother to be proud of this dish. It'd be good if she would, say, Chris, that is a beautiful dish that not only learned the lessons of her cooking, but took it to another level. So if I've done my job, she's good with it. And that's kind of the way I approached this dish. I had to make sure I honor my grandmother and make sure it was perfect. All right, so let's plate this puppy. Y'all getting hungry? Enough talking, right? You just shut up, chef, and put the food on the plate.
Do we all get a plate like that one?
No, man. But somebody does win. Somebody does win this plate. Somebody in this room gets this
okay.
plate of food.
Oh, okay, all right.
I need to, cause I didn't watch, so it's gonna be good luck today.
No, I'm joking, because it's not gonna be that. It's gonna be a little,
It's just gonna be bad.
yeah, right.
That's a huge
So now you can put the chow chow wherever you want. I kind of like the chow chow to be on the greens. You know what I mean? Let it kind of soak into the greens a little bit, and then and just have the meat on top. And so just to kind of let y'all know what's going to happen is, once this is done, which is in just a few minutes, you'll go in the next room and the chef will have prepared a tasting portion of this recipe for you. So just, you're probably eating lunch already, so you're probably not starving. So, yeah. So look at that. You're right.
Now, my question is, what would that plate run at your restaurant?
This would cost you about $34.
I was guessing 30.
Yeah, I want to.
So that's the finished dish.
Which was not bad.
Wow.
Right, huh? Heck out of here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo, son.
Who'd you dress the sides with?
What is that garnish?
Which one?
This.
That's cornbread. Yeah,
Cornbread.
this is normally I would do a big stick on here, you know, like just right out of the oven, a big whole stick. They didn't have the stick pan, so this is just, you know, the cornbread that they do. So that's the finished dish, y'all. Yeah, all right. Okay. Ooh, excuse me.
Now, your grandmother would probably never recognize
Oh.
that.
She wouldn't recognize it.
But I think she would be very
I
proud.
hope so.
Look what I want.
Well, there's enough on there for you to share too.
Look, and I can eat these like this too.
Let me get something for you to eat with.
Yours.
That was nice. There was a picture of that.
Hands for it, Chef.
It's delicious.
Look at that, y'all.
I know, it's so good.
It looks pretty.
Thank you, Chef.
You want to share? You didn't eat lunch?
I went to a ball game.
What was?
My
what was the girl's
grandson
name
played.
that made-
My grandson played
Tina
good
Payne,
too, but I
Earthborn
missed
Pottery.
it.
Gina, gosh, that bean is so good.
It is.
Yeah, you can Google it. How about that?
It's delicious.
Isn't it good?
It's so good.
Don't
my
worry, y'all.
goodness.
Y'all
That-
get to taste it too.
You with her?
Yes,
You with her?
that's
Yes,
my-
Okay, so apparently your daughter is hanging out with, and we need a picture because she used to work for me.
Okay, we're
No,
gonna take care of
Nia.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna
Nia.
take care of that.
You know Amber too? Did Amber work there? Then she was on the baking show.
Maybe?
I think
I have to see a picture.
I think
Now,
she did.
in 23 years, you know how many people have come through my restaurant?
Yeah, right.
That many.
I can't remember last week, much less.
Yeah.
You're on the team with the chef from Calaja?
Yes, Rob McDaniel.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, he's a
He's
chef
real
at
good
Spring
friend
House.
of my sister.
He's a great guy.
He's so much fun.
Great.
Can you put that
Hell of a
meat?
cook.
Just
I was
that
And
meat.
Boy,
bacon.
boy can rattle
But
a
I
pan.
wasn't
Okay.
Yes, he was with me along with another sous chef from Hot Nine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I love that bacon.
Isn't that good?
That is some delicious bacon.
I don't like collards.
Oh,
That
really?
doesn't taste
Can I
like
taste it? The
That
bacon.
is
Oh.
delicious.
The
How'd you
bacon.
like it?
The bacon.
Well, here's a piece of bacon.
I like the word lady asked about. I'm on the smallest.
I don't know if that matters. I think it's like a
Because it's going to pull it
My
out.
husband's trying to get me to
Once
try
once the
too.
heat gets to those collard greens, right?
Help.
If you don't
Yeah, I'm trying to.
cook the hell out of them fast, you got to cook it slow and low, covered. Got to have a lid on it. It captures the steam
Oh no!
and it just lets all that good pot liquor out.
Oh, you're welcome.
You could do that as well, 100%. And actually, slow cookers are good because
Oh.
the good ones these days you can like you can take the bacon,
Yes.
you can render the bacon, throw in the onions, right? And you can clean your greens, chop them up, a little salt and pepper in there, and cover them tight with the good tight lid.
The pork loin is delicious. Everybody, it is delicious. It's as good as it smells. Sorry, y'all. Share everybody.
As long as it's cooking slow and low, and the top doesn't have to like be crimped down or anything. It just says on there, and then over 20 minutes.